So did David Letterman go too far with his jokes, or is all of this just much ado about nothing? As I think it is. Joining me tonight in New York is Jane Velez Mitchell, host, of course, of The Great Issues with Jane Velez Mitchell. We're watching you, Jane, every weekday night and every weekend night, 7 p.m. Eastern here on HLN. In Hollywood tonight is Leslie Marshall, who's the host of the nationally syndicated radio show, The Leslie Marshall Show. Okay, so as you just heard it, Sarah Palin calling the jokes that Letterman made sexually perverted and disgusting. I gotta tell you, I don't think it was any of that, and I think David Letterman, Jane, was doing what he does best, but do you think he crossed a line here?
Well, AJ, I think the bottom line is that there is a comedy writer on the Letterman staff who is in deep doo-doo tonight because he got his facts wrong, or she got her facts wrong. Even comedy writers have to get the facts right. These jokes were intended to be about an 18-year-old Bristol who is very infamous or famous, however you want to look at it, because she had a child as a teen out of wedlock, while the Palins were very, very well known to be in favor of abstinence only. But the jokes ended up being directed at a 14-year-old. So Letterman saying, hey, it wasn't intended. This was a mistake. Yes, it was tasteless, but it wasn't intended to be as tasteless as it was.
Yeah, and I don't want to correct you here, Jane, but I don't believe that the jokes, I think we need to be clear about this, the jokes were not directed at the 14-year-old or intended for the 14-year-old. It was perceived to have been that way because it was Willow who was at the baseball game. There was confusion there, but that was not his intent at all with the joke. So what do you think, given that, Leslie, given the fact that he was making this joke about Bristol Palin, do you think he crossed a line?
I think, honestly, as a talk host myself, not on television, certainly not the magnitude of a David Letterman, and he does have writers, that is very true, like Jane said. But, you know, looking at this, in my opinion, when somebody runs for office, they're not off limits, but I do believe their kids and their spouses should be, whether they're 14 or 18. But I got to tell you this. I think the joke was poking at Alex Rodriguez because he's been paired with everybody else, and then they tied in the pregnancy of the older daughter, clearly, who is 18. And, you know, 14, 18, I think kids are off limits. I do think he regrets it. He is a dad. You know, certainly, you know, it was a bit sexist, but I took it more as a joke and a jab against Alex Rodriguez.
Yeah, it was an all-encompassing joke. Sarah Palin, as we've heard, just beside herself over this whole thing. And I think what she wrote on her Facebook page just says it all. Let me read it to you. She says, acceptance of inappropriate sexual comments about an underage girl who could be anyone's daughter contributes to the atrociously high rate of sexual exploitation of minors by older men who use and abuse others. I just get a kick out of the fact that Sarah Palin has a Facebook page. Also, Palin's husband, Todd, chiming in on his page. Any jokes about raping my 14-year-old are despicable. Well, guess what? Todd Palin, I agree with you. Clearly, David Letterman agrees with you. But, Jane, at no time did Dave say anything about rape or a 14-year-old.
Exactly. It's the Palins who have brought in the words perversion and rape. And frankly, their outrage is just over the top. It almost feels like they're taking this ball and running with it as far as they can go.
You think?
And so their motives are kind of suspect as well. And it was a joke. It was tasteless. But as David Letterman says, he makes thousands of tasteless jokes. That's the business that he is in.
Yeah.
And if they had a sense of humor, I think they would come off a lot better than really beating their chests over this.
Yeah, he's the first one to own that. Everybody talking about this today. Obviously, the ladies of The View were fired up. Listen to what Barbara Walters said this morning on the show. Let's roll that, Charles.
There is something about talking about anybody's child. I mean, however you feel about Sarah Palin, she is, and the family, they are a devoted family. You can say anything you want about me. We all say this. Don't talk about my child.
Yeah, Leslie, this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. So do you agree with Barbara, the kids really should be off limits, and even 18-year-old Bristol?
Yeah, I do feel the kids should be off limits. Unfortunately, when you put yourself in the public eye, you, in a sense, put your family in the public eye, and that's a shame. Sarah Palin's not off limits. I mean, the joke about Bloomingdale's makeup, slutty flight attendant attire, I thought was funny, quite frankly, and I'm a woman, and I don't care if she's a Democrat or Republican, but there are off limits. I mean, Maureen Dowd called the First Lady a whore and a stripper. She is First Lady. Sarah Palin is governor of Alaska, but she is running, but her kids are not. I agree with Barbara Walters that kids are off limits. And I got to say, how does the governor of Alaska have time to even be on Facebook?
And AJ, it was the Palins. They're the ones who trotted out their entire family during the campaign.
That is exactly right. Let us not forget that. Jane Velez Mitchell, Leslie Marshall, we got to end it there. I thank you both.